G'day people, it's James Wilson here from James Wilson Domestic and Commercial Pest Management, aka Fish Magnet, aka Extra Pest 2002. I do get into a few different types of presentations. Give you a bit of a background of myself. Educated at Waverley College, undefeated junior champion in swimming. I actually made it to the Olympic team. So I've got a broad base of knowledge. That schooling I've done there, I can tell you now, if you've got a young son and you want to put him into a school where you can get well educated, there's nothing like Waverley. If you really want to learn, it's the place of learning. And the stories you hear about all the schools run by the Brotherhood and stuff, they're not all the same. Pedophiles and whatnot. Mate, I went to Waverley for a long time, and I can assure you that nothing like that went on at that school. It was absolutely brilliant. And my education that I've had, I put it all down to Waverley College. It's as simple as that. I learned everything I need to know about the world, and the good and the bad. Anyway, as hobbies, I got into a lot of things. Paleontology, which is the study of fossils. Geology, study of rocks. Volcanology, study of volcanoes. Seismology, earthquakes. Fishing, it's been a passion since I was 3 years of age. What else? Sailing, I took up about 8 years ago. It was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, I assure you. Have a go at it. There's nothing like it. The freedom you feel is unbelievable. I've powerboated since a little boy, and when I swapped over to sail, man, I didn't know what I was missing. I used to laugh at the guys cruising past so slow. There's nothing like it. Give it a go. It's something that gives you a new lease on life, and the freedom that you feel is unbelievable. You have to try it to understand what I'm trying to express. What else? What else am I into? Fishing's a passion. Surfing, I surfed a lot. As a young fellow, I was also a lifeguard out at Southern River Surf Club. I was a junior nipper there. Actually ended up doing a few rescues, even as a nipper. We had a couple of sandbank collapses and whatnot. I did remember saving about 16 people, I think it was, over the period of time that I was doing that stuff. And I was only a little boy, and I was only a little short fella. I was bored, and I could pull myself through the water with an adult by the hair. That's it. We were taught to do what we had to do. If you grab a drowning person, don't think that when you grab them that they just relax and you can take them to shore. It doesn't work that way. First thing they try and do is step on your shoulder so they can get air. So sometimes you're going to give them a fright, which could involve giving them a smack in the mouth, punch in the nose. I've done that a couple of times to some bigger guys that are stronger than me. Just long enough to give them a fright and sort of get them in sort of like a headlock, get behind them, and then start moving. And once they know they're up on the top, they start to relax because they're getting air. So that's the trick with that. I know a fair bit about that sort of stuff. I did have a couple of run-ins with the old Noah's Arks, the sharks. Never been bit. Back then, I did see big green or brownish things circle me and leave a few times because I used to swim out to the boys that were a quarter mile out. Being young and dumb, I call it. Yeah, looking back, hairy. But back then, my heart I didn't even raise my heartbeats back then. I know that. So I reckon that's what kept me alive. There was no fear in my body of that animal. So they were just curious, and I was curious. I'd just get under the water with my eyes open and watch it go around me and leave. So yeah, I never worried about them. But as you get older, you soon learn different. Over the years of sailing, putting the boat on the mooring and stuff down in Leichhardt, I've been hit by bull sharks a dozen times in my little blow up. A little blow up. I mean, sometimes $40 blow up. Going back to the wharf from the mooring, putting the boat away. And that's the time I used to worry. When I was in the yacht, never worried about them at all. I had yachts from 19 feet up to 65 feet. And never no fear. Boats themselves, first boat I ever got in my life was 7'6". I was living in New Zealand at the time. I was 10 years of age. And the boat was, as I say, 7'6", fiberglass, a clinker built. And that little boat I bought off a fisherman for $10, which he later gave me back. He was a really nice old guy. Yeah, she didn't have no holes. She didn't have no patches. She was a solid old boat. And I didn't know at the time, but it had built-in buoyancy under the seats, and there was like a double coating. So there was an outer coating, maybe that thick, say 2 mil, 3 mil, and then there was an air pocket in between, and then there was another thickness the same, probably a bit heavier, probably about double it, 4 mil, 5 mil, fiberglass on the inside. So yeah, that's what kept the air in it, and that's what kept the boat safe. And I used to get in that boat. There's a place in New Zealand called the Manukau River up at Onehunga, and it's quite a few miles from the heads of the river. Over there, when the tide comes in, it comes in racing, and if you're out on the mud flats, which I used to do a lot, you can walk along it and the mud can sink you down to your waist. And if you get stuck in the mud, it's very, very hard to get out. So yeah, just a bit of advice there, people. If you ever go out into New Zealand and you're on the mud flats, be very careful, because when that tide starts racing back in, you'll be surprised how quick you're going to drown. You cannot outrun that bloody water coming back in on the mud. You'll get stuck, the tide will come up around you and you will drown. So be aware of that. We used to have a couple of little sneaky tricks we could use. Pieces of aluminium, pieces of tin that we'd throw down in front of us, walk, another piece, throw it in front and do it like that. And we had a couple of tricks for catching eels. Old roof tin. We used to go out about 50 yards from shore when the tide was out. We'd lay the pieces of corrugated iron down just onto the mud. Nothing special, no special techniques, just dump it, go back in, tide to come in, tide to go out. And the big conger eels, I don't know why, they'd hang around under the mud, on the mud, underneath the tin, till the tide come back. They'd sort of make a bit of a hole, like wiggling their body. They'd make a little bit of a mud pile in there, so there'd be a little bit of moisture in there, not water, but moisture in there, so they'd be all muddy and slushy, keep them from drying out. I don't know how they can handle the heat, but they could. It's not as hot as Australia, it's pretty temperate compared to here. Average about 17 degrees, say, and up to 24, 25. And once they're under that tin, we can just flick the tin off and hit them with a spear. But don't think they're easy to get. As soon as you lift that piece of tin, they took off scampering across the mud. You couldn't chase them. There's no hope in the world. You'd sink. So you had to be pretty good with a spear and pretty quick. And some of the real big ones used to give you a real fright, because they sort of have a go towards you and scare the living shit out of you, so you'd miss them and they'd go away, you know. But I was only a little boy, so I thought they'd try and eat me. They were just terrified. And we used to catch the eels like that. I'd take them up to the local pub at Onehunga Hotel, stand outside and we'd sell them to all the islanders. They love them. Maoris love them. Put them in the smokehouse. They call their mates around and have a big feed. They really love their seafood. While I was over there, I met a couple of fishermen that were locals, the Grimer boys, and mum and dad, not mum and dad, dad and grandpa, all fishermen, generations and generations of fishermen. Just up the road from there was another one I was really good friends with, Tim Wade, Maori guy, and his wife Polly. Well, between both of them guys, I learnt everything I know about the sea, really. That's it, everything I know. They taught me so much. And Tim Wade, he had a 15-foot runabout, and it was made out of marine ply, and I'm talking marine ply that was probably thick as a mobile phone, and it could flex, and it used to scare me. And like I said, he was a commercial fisherman, and he used to go out all over the Onehunga area, or right out around the airport. Virtually the whole system of the Manukau River was his to fish, and same with the Grimer boys. And when Tim would go out, he specialised a lot in sharks and drying out shark fins, things like that. But one thing I'll give the man, they did not waste shark over there like they do today, cut a fin off and throw the rest away. He caught a shark, the whole shark was utilised, there was no waste. I mean, no waste. They found a use for something. Mate, they're amazing people. Like the Maoris are very green, very eco-friendly. That's why their rivers and harbours are still full of the old snapper. You know, anywhere else in the world they're getting harder and harder to catch. Over there, they're everywhere. Still are today, people. So I advise a trip to New Zealand. If you're ever over there, go to Auckland, check out the place. There's a massive wharf down in Auckland. Not going to tell you where it is, but it's the longest wharf around. It's about 20 minutes from the heart of the CBD. That's all the information I'm going to give you. Do a little bit of your own searching. And yeah, the wharf goes out about 2 miles. So you're not going to miss it on the map. But it's worth the half an hour walk out to the point of the wharf. I've caught kingfish out there 6 foot long. Caught, but not landed. Simple as that. I was only a little boy. I had game reel, fancy rod, because my auntie, bless her heart, she bought me some really expensive gear. Back then I was a bit of a spoiled brat, and she had a few dollars when we got to New Zealand, so she bought me the best bike, best fishing gear. She knew I loved it. Anything I was into, any sport, she made sure I had all that. Latest skateboards, surfboards, all the rest of it. So I was pretty well healed in that sort of manner. Anyway, the kingfish, as I say, were awesome there. I hooked kingies 6 foot long, and I mean 6 foot long, like torpedoes. Once you hook one of them off a wharf and they take off, you know you got a fish. Now, also over there, the biggest stingrays I've ever seen in my life. Very common, very common. At night, a few times I used to go out, not quite a few, with a tilly lamp. If you know what a tilly lamp is, one of them lanterns that you pump up and they get really bright. When you move a tilly lamp side to side, it's like the moon to flounder. And when you can't see them when they're laying on the bottom, very difficult to locate them, just like a stingray. But once you start moving that light, the silly buggers come off the bottom and move. They move to try and relocate themselves by the angle of the moon. It's amazing to watch. And you hit them with the old 2-prong spear, like I'm in 12 inches of water. And I done that for a couple of years. Like, I loved it all the time. As often as I could get a chance to do it, I done it. If the weather allowed it. Like, you need pretty calm conditions because you won't be able to see into the water, obviously. If it's too windy, you can't do it. Until one night, I was out with my mate, and we shouldn't have went because we didn't have tilly lamps. All we had was these bloody kerosene lanterns, the cheap, crappy, few dollar ones. And that's all we had for a lighting source, and you can't see nothing hardly with them. You know, you can just barely see into the water. So we didn't know really what we were going to do that night. And moving it side to side, the flounder didn't even seem to rise up or nothing. So we had to be careful. And I said before, you know, sharks weren't really a worry. When I was a kid, I wasn't really worried about them. But I was wary if I was in the water in a place like that, because like the local fishermen, they caught sharks all the time. So I knew they were everywhere there. And I'm in water. Okay, when the tide comes in, it packs the mud, so you don't sink. So I can walk out half a k from the shore and be only up to my knee because the tide's rising, you know, or falling. But up to your knee is enough water for a big bull shark come in and take your legs off, or drag you into, just keep dragging you out until he does get to a main channel and take you away. It wouldn't matter anyway. Like, if they take your legs off, you're going to bleed out. Simple as that. You're not going to survive it. So we're always on the lookout for a shark. Touch wood, never ever seen one. No, I'm pretty well bloody blessed. I've never ever seen one. I'm glad, because it probably would have turned me off fishing for good. But this one day we were walking around and we're about 4 feet apart. We both stood on the same bloody stingray, and I mean we're 4 feet apart. So his wings were at least 4 foot wide, and I'm telling you, it scared the living shit out of us. And it flicked us off. Thank God, it's not like all the stories you hear about them stabbing everyone. They don't always stab you with a stinger. He got just as much of a fright as we did. He flicked us off. We both landed in the water. The lamps hit the water, blew up, both of them. So in pitch black darkness, forget everything. We just looked back at the lights on shore and went for our bloody lives, I'm telling you. Well, I didn't go after flounder anymore like that. Ever. I started netting and doing the way everybody else done. Now, I'll tell you a little trick, folks, on how to get flounder in the shallows if you've got a net. Now, you get into a cove, okay? Here's your shore, there's your shore. Okay, well, I'll do it like this. There's your shoreline, right? Running around in it like an arc. Okay, go in and put your net in the water, set it at about, start at the shoreline, actually on the sand, and come out on a 45-degree angle. Okay, leave it like that. So one side's open, obviously. Never try and seal off a whole section with a U. Like fishermen told me never to do it. I made the mistake a couple of times, ended up with holes in my net that were that big you would not believe. Like, I mean, 2 meters high, 3 meters around, and I was thinking of what the animal went through. That was that big, and it's only 6 feet of water or so when the tide came up. Well, nothing is that big, or that round anyway. They're that big, but not that round. But what it was big sharks got into it, rolled in the net, and just ripped the whole thing to shreds. So never block off a whole area. Always leave a gap for the big predators to get out, and the big stingrays. You know, all they're going to do is trash your net. Well, once you've got that 45-degree angle, you get in a little rowboat and get the paddle and slap the water. Only 12 inches out from the shore. As close as you can get to the shore and slap the water, and the boat will float along. That's where you are. Just keep slapping, so that you're slapping and the fish are going to head towards the net. And that slap, the flounder on the bottom, they get a fright and they shoot straight out and hit the net. And that's how you get your flounder. And that was a trick that was taught to me by the Grimer boys. Thank you, fellas. Never forget you, Paul and Peter. These were great. These were really good to my family too. Like, I'll never forget you guys. Thank you. God bless you both. I hope you're all well. Haven't seen you since I was a little boy. Who knows, you know. I'm an old man now, I'm 52. Back then I was only 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you watched me grow, you fellas, and mate, I'm quite proud to have known you guys. As I say, they were fishermen, commercial fishermen. Those guys actually had a boat that was about 38 feet, a putt-putt diesel, pretty low, set in the water, little cabin, not much work out at the back, just enough for them to do what they had to do. And they had half a dozen wooden boats. They were sort of shaped like sailing skiffs, but they were just wooden boats, rowboats, and they were up to 16, say from 12 to 16 feet. And reason being, they could hold a lot of net without sinking, and a lot of fish. And when they put out nets hundreds of yards. Like, they could seal off the whole bloody bay. They had enough net. And well, you think you're going to get a million fish, you don't. You just don't. Doesn't matter if there's a million fish there, you don't catch them all. Every time they set the net, if they set out about a 200 yard net, they might get two boxes if they're lucky, a flounder, which was an excellent catch. Usually you might only get a box. So don't think there's massive amounts. There's no massive amounts. They made a living. They didn't get rich, or they would have retired long before I met them. These guys taught me a lot, as I said. They were crazy on fishing. If they weren't netting, they were out doing something involving fishing or repairing nets. There was always something. It was always involved around the sea. They gave me my addiction, maybe, to fishing. They were great, mate. They were great. Anyway, there was another guy up the road. His name was Tim Wade. Tim taught me a lot of things. He was more connected to the land. Being a Maori, it's his country. The Grimer boys had Italian ties. Another place where fishermen go back 100 generations. Simple as that. The sea's in their blood. And Tim Wade, he was the type of guy that sort of lived off the land. That's the guy I told you who was drying the sharks and things like that. Dried shark. I couldn't believe how they did it, hang it on the clothesline in the backyard, and when they hung it on the clothesline in the backyard, all sorts of insects would come and start eating through it, and I thought it was absolutely disgusting. But apparently, even when the maggots went through it, they only ate the bad stuff. Anything left was good stuff. And I don't know, he must have been selling it to the Chinese or something. As I said, I was only a kid. I didn't ask too many questions. I was very inquisitive, but when it come to his marketing and the way he made his money, it was none of my business, so yeah, I didn't push the envelope. On anything I knew about fishing or anything like that, open book. Anything when you wanted to know about life, open book. At that time I had no father figure, and like Tim, as were Paul and Peter, they were pretty well like dads, you know. They were really good, really good, decent people. And I was only a little boy, and my auntie raised me, and she knew that I was safe around them, so I could wander off for days, and she knew I was okay. Tim taught me how to catch a lot of different things and how to survive off the land, as I said. Well, down along the bank where we actually fished in Onehunga, there was a bit of grass and stuff like most places over there, and soil's volcanic. You get a lot of mushrooms that come up early in the morning, and he told me to get down there every morning just before the sun came up and start wandering around looking for the mushrooms and cut them out with a butter knife. So I started to do that, and that was another little income source. I could probably get 2 kilos, 3 kilos, which is a lot of bloody little mushrooms. I'm talking the little butt ones. That's that's hundreds to get a couple of kilos, and I could do that every morning. I never used to do it every morning because Tim had to get a good feed for himself, and he was the type of guy that would get a feed for himself and everybody else in the street, or whoever wanted him, he'd give them to him. Fish he couldn't, that was his living. He was pretty poor. The Grimers were pretty poor. I don't know, fishermen over there all seem to be pretty poor in New Zealand, but they love what they do and they don't care. You know, they're the happiest people in the world. See you're hungry, they'll always give you a feed, and the doors are open to anybody. They'll give them help. You know, they're lovely people. Yeah, another thing Tim taught me over there was a little bit of how to navigate at night, using marks in the night when you can't see much at all, just the odd light and whatever. One night he took a shortcut across a bank, and like he knew the bank was there. At that time, sounders all they were was a little gauge in your boat, well, 0 to 10, and a little needle go up and down like that, and that was telling you how many meters under the boat, how many feet, whatever it was, feet I think. Anyway, we got to an area he knew pretty well. It's middle of the night, and the tide was racing out. Over there, I mean racing out, okay? We're about a mile from the heads, so it's flying. And he wanted to get over to the other side of this area to, I don't know if we were going to anchor or fish for the night, but he was desperate to get over there. And I thought, okay, why don't we go straight across? And he said there's a big sandbank in the middle, and he's looked at the time and the tide, and looked under the boat with the light. You can see the bottom, you can see the sand's only about 3 feet deep. He said, I shouldn't do it, we'll probably get stuck, we're going to make a run for it. And we started to bolt across, and I thought, it's 2 kilometres across at the most, maybe less, and we're going to be going flat out with an old heap of shit engine, probably a 55 Chrysler or something on the boat, something from what I remember. It was an old Chrysler, might have been up to 70 horsepower, no more. And like I say, only a little crappy boat, wooden marine ply, so it did get up and go, but being on the bank and not much water, he had to tilt the engine up a little bit just to make sure that it didn't kick on the bottom. So we went for it, and no, I shouldn't have done it. I jinxed him. By the time we were about 30 metres from getting off the bloody sandbank, there wasn't enough water under the boat, and we got stuck. And the wind started howling. It was pissing down rain. There's no protection on this boat. You got no cover. Yeah, I was freezing. Nothing to eat. He got off the boat and took me for a walk on the bank. It was a bit muddy, but we didn't sink like the other areas around Onehunga. The reason when you were walking you'd hear crunch, 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 and I thought, what's different here to around Onehunga? We're sinking straight down, there was nothing in the mud. And he said there was a cocklebed. Known to him and a few other fishermen, I suppose, cocklebed where the snapper used to feed. So we walked out, we got cockles. Disgusting, folks. I hate them. I'm not really a shellfish person. They were disgusting, especially raw. But I was really hungry. I wanted to put something in my belly, so I did eat probably a dozen of them. And tried to get some sleep. I curled up in a ball like a cat. I tried to get under the nose of the boat. It was the only little piece of ply where you had this place to tie your bow, like bow rail and stuff. So there was a little bit of a spot under there. I moved everything out and got underneath there. So say 3/4 of my body, only my legs were sticking out in the rain. Tim was just sitting up at the back of the boat, soaking wet, just sitting there, waiting for things to change. And like, he's an old guy, he's in his 50s, and from what I remember, I don't think he even had wet weather gear on. He was just in a big thick woolen jumper, which a lot of the Maoris do over there. Once a woolen jumper gets wet, I didn't know at the time, holds its heat, so he wasn't feeling the effects as bad as I was from the wind. Like, I wasn't dressed like that. All I had on was a jumper, jeans. Thank God I had my jeans on. I always stickler for wearing jeans, never liked wearing shorts. Even today I don't. And I fell asleep, and I woke up about 4 in the morning, and the tide was on its way back in. And he said, I'll jump in the water with me, boy. And I looked around and I said, no way in the world, we're too close to the mouth of the river, I'm not getting in the water. And he said, alright, fair enough. So he got back in the boat and threw the anchor over, and he said, mate, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, we'll be able to get off here anyway. He said, I might start fishing. Well, we weren't there to net, we were there to handline. That's how he was catching the fish. He started throwing his line out. Now, I'm telling you guys, it was only 3 feet deep, and I'm glad he turned the torch off. He caught shark after shark. They were about a metre, no bigger than 1.5 metres, but most were 1 metre or under. And I mean, he caught, by the time we left there, he caught at least 100. We had enough sharks in the boat that we couldn't catch any more. We had to go home. And when you throw them in the boat, they're pretty bloody lively, and little shits try and bite. I mean, they just kick up with their tails and they try and bite anything that's nearby, which was bloody me, And here's Tim laughing his head off, And I'm trying to clamp over everything, mate, trying to stand on top of the bloody windscreen to get away from these sharks. But yeah, I was pretty scared of them, and even when we got back to pack them in the boxes, the buggers were still kicking, Still as alive as when we pulled them out of the water. some of them lay there like they were already dead, you know, and you go to touch them and, mate, lightning strike, they'd be up and at you. So be aware. Little sharks, very, very aggressive and very, very agile. Don't think they're docile. Don't think they can't move 100 times faster than you, and don't think they're dead. Right? They always play dead. They want to bite you. You do the same. If you knew you were going to die, and you knew you could get at least your last shot at that person that tried to hurt you or kill you, you're going to lash at them with everything you got, and they do. You take them home, do all these little methods of cleaning them, getting the skin off. That's if he was getting fillets. If he wasn't getting fillets, he's hanging some for drying. He's hanging, like I said, the fins, the tails, and the rest of it all up for drying. And the meat and that, selling it all. So there was no waste. There was no waste. Even little jaws, he had people buying little sets of jaws, or tourists, whatever. He had it all sold. I didn't ask questions. He had it all sold, you know. But he taught me how to catch them. He taught me how to catch snapper. He taught me how to catch trevally. He taught me how to catch flounder. He was a really good fisherman. He used to talk a lot about snapper and old man snapper. I really like stories from the old fishermen, you know, especially if I found one that wasn't bullshit, you know. You get plenty of old fellas that just tell a kid a yarn. This guy never lied. Excuse me, message, they can wait. He always told the truth. Now, New Zealand, as people know from all over the world, is the home of the snapper. Not the ugly ones with a lump on the head like here in Australia. They're bloody ugly, and truth be known, they're getting pretty bloody rare. From Sydney down, we've got temperate water, and they don't seem to have the pronounced hump so bad. They're a pretty fish. It's very similar to New Zealand's ones. I've caught a couple, 14 to 16 pounders, close to Sydney. Not telling you folks where I caught them. There's no way in the bloody world. But I'll just say they're on the rocks. Anyway, the snapper over there, the old man snappers, we're talking about snapper that of world record sizes. That's the old granddaddies. Like, I think the world record was 55 pounds at that time, and I've seen one well over that. I've seen one with teeth like my thumb, and maybe it had 6 teeth left in its head, and when it opened its mouth, I shit myself. That's how big it was. I didn't hook it. There was an old guy, and old guy I called him anyway, I was a kid. On the day I seen the old man snapper, I was fishing on a wharf called Onehunga Wharf, and only me and this guy were fishing there. The wind was that strong coming down the river. It was nearly blowing me in the water. This guy was a stocky guy, so he didn't have to worry, but I had to worry. I had myself tied to one of the pylons that you tie the boats up to. I had no choice. I was only light. And we just kept fishing. We were sticking it out. God knows what I was thinking I was going to catch. Well, this guy had an 80-pound handline with a massive hook, and he's fishing just over the side of the wharf, and the current's roaring, so he's just, we're doing what we could, because the weather wasn't, you know, it was really adverse conditions, couldn't really fish much, and he hooked something, and he was struggling. I mean, he was a big boy, and he was pulling on the line, and this thing was swimming in arcs, so it wasn't getting away, it was just doing arcs, so he had the strength to fight it. Well, this went on for about half an hour, and he started to win, and by then he was pretty buggered, and he asked me to help him. Well, I was only little, but I was very solid. From all the swimming and stuff, I was very solid, so I was pretty strong. So I gave him a hand, and we managed to get this thing to the top. Well, he's walked down the stairs at the end of the wharf, at Onehunga, if you guys are over there in New Zealand. And from the water level at the time to the very bottom, like the bottom step, then there's a platform, and the water would have been down below that platform, which is the bottom of the steps, maybe down about no more than 18 inches below the last bit of platform where you can stand. Plenty of room, easy for us to get the fish out of the water. We've both pulled 1, 2, 3, pulled it up. We've got the head coming up. Just the head's come up over the edge of the wharf, and we haven't even got the gills onto the wharf yet. That's how big its head was. And we're pulling, and we're watching this big bloody suicide hook slowly straighten out like that, and it just slipped back in the water. We couldn't believe it. He's just looking at me, pale white. I was the same, you know. I could not talk. I didn't know what to say. I just had tears in my eyes. It teared me up. And the wind's howling. We couldn't hardly hear each other talk. Just shaking his head, my mate, the guy I met there. And there's 2 big sheds on the wharf. We got up, went up the stairs, and we got behind the wharf, behind the sheds there, so we could talk and we could hear each other from the howling of the wind. And first we sat there for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, excuse me. And I'll have to take that soon. And we're just looking at each other for a few minutes, you know, and just shaking our head. We didn't know what to say and where to start the conversation. I started it about 5 minutes after. I said, mate, no one's going to believe this, you know. And he said, I know. He said, it's a big old man snapper. And I said, I know all about him. When I leave here, I'm going straight down to the old fishermen, commercial fishermen guys that I know. I'm going to tell them exactly what happened here. They'll believe me because they know about the old man snappers. And he said, that was pretty big. You know, I said, mate, you had the world record. And he went, you're kidding. I said, no, that's the world record. At the time, it was 55 pounds. I said, and that fish you had on there was well over it, mate. It was bigger than a normal table. I reckon 70 to 80 pounds. It was huge. And like I said, it had 5 or 6 teeth left in its head. Don't care if you believe me or not. You know, I don't give a shit. I'm 52. I've got no reason to lie. There's no gains. There's no money to be made. You know, I don't bullshit. I don't lie. One thing I don't lie, you know. I'm not rich and my word's everything I've got. Simple. I don't lie. It's been my downfall over the years. Lost my miss because I don't lie. If I just fucked up, I tell the truth. But this thing was the biggest fish I'd ever seen in my life for a snapper. Its colour wasn't the normal beautiful red. It was starting to fade to a pink. It was definitely a snapper. Massive lips. Big eye. The eye was as big as a bloody cricket ball. Oh. Easy a cricket ball. Easy a cricket ball, the eye. The eye itself. I reckon it was bigger than I think that was the black part of the eye anyway, cricket ball. Just thinking back, you know, it's a lot of years have gone past. But I left there, went down to only hung on the main street and stuff. Shot down to Timmy Wade's first before I went to Paul and Peter Graham. I'm yelling out, Tim, man. He couldn't hear me because of the howling and that. I started banging on the wall of the house. And he opened the door. I'm soaking wet. Get inside, boy. Come and have a feed. The first thing he said. That's what you get from every New Zealander. Get in here and have a feed. Offered me a beer. Over there, like, kids are offered alcohol. And I wasn't one to drink much. You know, I didn't like it. You know, I got drunk a couple of times. I won't say I didn't, like most kids did over there. But I wasn't drinking. But out of respect, I'd sit there and I'd have a beer. You know, half a glass, whatever, because I'm sitting there drinking with Tim. And I said, Tim, I've seen the old man snapper, and he laughed. He said, oh, has he got to see one, first one? I said, yeah, I've seen him. And I told him how big. He said, they grow that big and bigger. And he said, reason he was there was because he can't hunt anymore, so he lives under the wharf and gets things easy. Anything thrown off a boat, a bloke hooks a fish, grabs it, pulls it off the rod, off your line, things like that. You know, any bait you throw over after you finish fishing, he grabs that. And that's how he stays alive. You know, he can't hunt after his teeth are missing. He has to do what he can to survive. And he said, and they go to places like that. So, folks, the old man snappers ain't out in the ocean. Great whites get them real quick. And great whites love them. Sharks love to eat snapper. So, the only place they feel safe is under wharves. So, folks, they come back in. They start their lives as babies, as you know, in the harbours. You catch a little snapper all the time. Then they leave, go outside while they're very healthy and get to grow massive, but when they start getting old and infirm or get hurt, they're straight back in the harbour looking for a place where they can live the rest of their lives out. So that's about all I'm going to tell you is for part 1. I hope you enjoyed this. It's James Wilson, Express 2002, aka the Fish Magnet app man. Check out my Fish Magnet. That app does work and it does catch fish. And I'm also going to make it for Android soon. Thanks for watching, and God bless you all. Bye.